taxes are one thing and keeping things organized for that, but knowing your numbers and knowing how profitable your business is and what's working and what's not is more important than just keeping things organized for tax season. Because I think that's where you get really good insights and can pivot and, adjust things so that you can become more profitable.
All right, what's up and welcome back everyone for another episode of the Long Game Podcast and also another episode of The Crossroads. Today we have one of my favorite CPAs out there, Brittney Suttle, the CEO of Knies & Co. that I actually have right there. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, I'm so excited to join and talk money and taxes and all that fun stuff.
All the fun stuff. So before we get going, will you give everybody a quick intro to who you are, what you do, what your company does, all that stuff?
Yeah. So like you said, I'm Brittney. I own a bookkeeping, tax, and consulting business. It's really a virtual business, but me and most of my team, we're based in Indianapolis, but we help clients across the United States. Basically, we do monthly bookkeeping services, get everything organized. We do tax returns for both businesses and individuals. We do consultations, helping new entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs who are, well into their business, work through some financial issues that maybe have come up or they need some answers to things. And then we also have a course catalog for entrepreneurs who maybe aren't at the point where they need or want to outsource some things, but they need really good information and direction as to how to manage their business, stay compliant with taxes, all of that. So we have some courses and more coming to help entrepreneurs in that phase as well. So lots of things going on. Like to stay busy.
I love that you're like one of the CPAs that's like creating content. Obviously, everybody follows us know we create a lot of content. That's how I found you. I saw your Instagram. I was like, what? Like no CPAs out here have any decent content. And I guess I get that for a lot of tax planning firms or just tax firms. Like there's so many clients. Everybody kind of needs an accountant at some point in their life. And I've really rarely ever come across one that was like, well, we have no clients. So right. I get the side of it, but I'm also a little envious of you and all the courses and all the giveaways because Trayden and I talk about it and it's on our radar, but fully realize that it's like a whole nother side of the business. Plus you have to market it separate than your business. And then finding the balance of not doing it too much and seeming salesy, but also enough where people know it's out there. And I think you do a really great job of that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it is. It is its own kind of separate baby, I would say, of your business, because it's a very different product / service you're providing when it's quote unquote passive. But as everyone knows, it's not very passive, especially when you're trying to build it versus your ongoing services. So you're kind of like wearing two hats when you're working on the two different products, and it does take a lot of work, a lot of time, but it's fun. I like doing it. So why not?
And as a business owner, you're used to wearing a number of hats anyways, that it's like, this is, and it's a great revenue stream because yours is same as ours, like great business, not the most scalable because of time, that it's cool to add another revenue stream that, I guess this is good for business owners watching this of like, it might not be passive, but compared to like one-on-one working with a business owner on tax stuff, it's pretty passive compared to that.
Right. Yeah. And for our type of business, especially, you either have to leverage other people's times or other people's time. So hiring employees and whatnot and building out those services or creating other revenue streams that potentially can be more passive in the future. And I've always been one where I've managed a large team before. It's not my favorite thing. So I really want to keep our team fairly small. So that's, one small reason why I started the course catalog as well. We will see. It's kind of new. I just started it last year. We're creating more courses this year, hopefully adding a lot to the catalog and see how it goes. So.
Yeah. And I'm curious because you said some of the courses are more for people who maybe aren't ready for a full-time accountant or a full-time bookkeeper. when does it usually make sense for someone to start like working with someone maybe full-time or part-time? Like, is it kind of like a profit number, or does it really just kind of depend?
It does depend. One on, I find a lot of people, it really depends on how much they hate doing bookkeeping. So
Yeah.
it's very subjective to the person, but also I tell people if you can keep it fairly organized and you don't have a lot of transactions, you may be able to get away with doing it on your own, because you'll probably have a really good sense of your numbers, the money coming in, what's going out, and be able to keep it organized enough for tax season when you need to file your tax return or provide that information to a CPA. If you've got a lot going on and it's semi-complicated and you can't keep up, that's kind of, I think, when you want to hire out. Because for me, I know everyone thinks like what they do is really important in terms of business. But for me, taxes are one thing and keeping things organized for that, but knowing your numbers and knowing how profitable your business is and what's working and what's not is more important than just keeping things organized for tax season. Because I think that's where you get really good insights and can pivot and, adjust things so that you can become more profitable.
Yeah, I think it's always interesting to me that people don't know their numbers. Like, I think on the personal side, I get it. Like, we have a lot of line items we're spending on. As long as we're not like going into credit card debt or having problems, we might be like, well, whatever, like this works
Right.
fine. But on the business side, like, it is shocking to me how many people ignore the numbers, because I just don't even understand, like, how do you even know what to pay yourself when you don't even know what those numbers are? Like Trayton and I, like, we both know, like, here's my client base, here's the exact what I do, here's our business expenses, here's shared business expenses, here's what's fixed business expenses every month. And it honestly takes me 5 minutes a month to do it. Here's new revenue that gets added in, here's reoccurring. Like, I think people run from something that once you have set up isn't that hard of work. And a lot of the bank accounts today, like, you can know your numbers just by, we use Mercury. Mercury is great. It shows money in, money out. We can see how our, checking account has gone over time. Like, it just, I feel like I don't understand how people run from that when most of the time tools can do 90% of that in the beginning. And then over time, as you grow and stuff, like, you do need a bookkeeper, even if you use QuickBooks or something like that. But I just don't know how you can know your numbers. How do you know, like, what to go spend on marketing and what to pay yourself and when can I hire and all of those things without having any idea of what's coming in minus what's coming out?
Right. And the answer is you don't. And so a lot of entrepreneurs just kind of, they think that they can afford something and then they do it and realize, oh crap, I don't have the cash for this. Now what? Or they're not paying themselves and just keeping kind of like cash in the business and not realizing, hey, maybe what I'm doing isn't profitable right now, that kind of thing. So yeah. The short answer is they don't. So, which is an issue.
I was just gonna say, how do you talk to people? I mean, I feel like we do different things, but there's overlap in the middle. Like, like consulting on the business, I think we both do with different people. Like, how do you give advice for people on hiring? Because I think that's like pain point number one is I need help. When do I hire?
Right. So I don't know if you guys are familiar maybe with the profit first method. Have you heard of that? Yeah.
I work with some of your clients and sheets and stuff.
So it's kind of like Dave Ramsey's envelope system, right? Where you allocate the cash that you get every month to different buckets. So personally, you would have like a rent envelope and a groceries envelope and so on and so forth. It's kind of the same thing, but virtually. You don't have physical envelopes, and you're just allocating the money that comes in to these different buckets based on percentages. So for instance, you have a bucket for operating expenses in your business. So you allocate a portion of the money that came in towards the expenses it takes to run your business. You have a bucket for taxes, because obviously if you're making money, you have to pay taxes. It's unfortunate. You have a bucket for owner's pay, so on and so forth. And when you are allocating enough to your operating expense bucket to where there is excess there and you can tell that you are allocating more than what you currently need, then you know you have excess and you know you can hire and you know your budget. Because if your operating expenses are 1,000, but you're allocating 1,500, you've got 500 extra dollars that you could spend on hiring someone.
Yeah. Well, I think the hard part for business owners is like, okay, like let's say I pick a percentage to use for operating expenses. My operating expenses are lower and I'm like, okay, like sweet. I guess I'll pay myself more this month because
Yeah.
I think that can be the hard part. Cause like for Trayton and I, what a lot of what I tried to do is say, how much would be my ideal amount to make? Like, I don't need to be making, 10 times what I spend a month, but my
Right.
goal was I want to live off of 50, invest and save 50. Anything above that, I'm just going to use to scale and grow the business and invest back in the business, which
Yeah.
I think I'm not saying that's the right approach because I think there's certain businesses that are like, well, we're living off of cash for 2 years as we build this business. We can't pay ourselves. I kind of had the nice side that when I started this business, I had an initial client base and I had revenue that over time I was like, okay, at this threshold, that's when I'll go higher because then I can pay out this much and keep my income here.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. There's different, ways to skin the cat, obviously. And there's different even ways to, even with the profit first percentage method, you can choose to pay yourself 0%. I mean,
Yep.
that's absolutely fine. And for a lot of people too, you can, even if you allocate a percentage to owner's pay and you just want to pay yourself a set salary out of that, you can. And if there's excess there, you can put it back in the business. You can save it.
For a month where you have low income so that
Exactly.
you save that amount. Yeah.
Exactly. So, there's different ways of doing things. When you find the way that works for you, great.
Yeah.
So yeah, but
Yeah.
I really like the percentage method just because, it's worked for me. It's worked for clients to where we can really see like, hey, this is the budget that we have for doing this, and we can afford to do
Yeah.
this.
It gives you like thresholds and models to work off of, which makes decisions easier versus like, oh, I could hire, I could pay myself more. You're like, well, you've already thought through these. This is how you do it based on these thresholds. I really think that's helpful because it's the same idea to financial planning. It's like, whatever those percentages is or whatever your plan is, whether it's the best plan or just like a good plan, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter as long as you stick to a plan versus just
Correct.
nonstop keep changing. And then like as a business owner,
Yes.
you have things to think about, like working in the business and working on the business, that if you don't have these thresholds or way to do it, then you're constantly just trying to make these decisions. And then you're just have a million decisions to be making every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said before, once you get something set up, it's pretty easy to manage going forward. It's just the initial setup. And you can always, make adjustments along the way.
Yeah.
You're not, nothing is ever set in stone, but it's just, I think people think it's going to be like this arduous process for, eternity. And that's not the case.
Yeah. And I'm curious in your opinion, kind of cherry picking this because I saw it on your blog, but how important are systems within a business and what are like a few of your favorites? Kind of just playing off that last question.
Yeah. So systems, for me, super important. I feel like it's the first form of outsourcing, and it's the cheapest form of outsourcing, right? Because a lot of times entrepreneurs get started and they just jump in and nothing is really that efficient. You're just kind of trying to do. And then you get to the point where you're like, I'm doing too much. And so the first step you really want to do is figure out, okay, what can I implement to become more efficient, save you time, and allow you to scale, obviously, a little bit more. And it's going to be at a fraction of the price that you would pay if you were to have someone else do it. And then, step two is then if and when you outsource and hire other people, you also have really efficient systems already in place to help them do their job more efficiently and communicate more efficiently. And it just makes it easier on everyone. So I love systems, super important. Some of my favorites, I would say that I've implemented in our business, obviously an accounting software or some type of income and expense tracking that's easy and doesn't take a lot of time. I know a lot of people still, manually enter stuff in Excel or a Google sheet or whatnot. And that's not a bad process. Like in my course catalog, I have a file that you can use if you don't want to pay, for QuickBooks, which is, it's a considerable expense. I do love QuickBooks. That's the one I always suggest to people. I also love, I use Dubsado for our like CRM or leads generation, which is fantastic. It automates so many workflows. So like the consultations I was talking about previously that we do, people can sign up for those via our website. It automatically kicks them a form. So they fill out the form. So I get a bunch of information on their business, what kind of, help they're needing, the answers they're needing to their questions. And then once that's filled out, I review, and then it'll kick out a scheduler to them so they can book an appointment. It will send out then like a deposit invoice to them, and it's basically all done. So all I have to do is kind of like review, see if I need any further information, but the appointment's on my calendar and we're good to go. So it took a little bit to set that up, but it saves me so much time now because I don't have to deal with the back and forth of emailing and here's my calendar and here now I need to send an invoice and hey, here's this questionnaire I need you to fill out, which is super annoying. So.
Yeah, like that's probably like a whole time like virtual assistant role. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that because when Trade and I joined together, I was like, Trade, all right, come to Indy. We're going to spend a couple days and we're going to build out process. Because it's like the number one thing I tell other financial planners or businesses, like if you start day one, you don't have any automation, any process, everybody's going through it differently. Like one, you're going to see them unorganized. It's going to be inefficient. You're going to produce not as good of results. So like Trade and I, day one, it was like writing out every single meeting, what happens in between the meeting, what they need to do. So for us, it's similar. Like somebody goes to our website, they book a meeting, it sends them a jot form of questions to answer. So we have a general idea of them. And then they get a video, but like before the first meeting, that's just us saying like, hey, we're really excited to work with you. Here's what you can expect in the meeting, blah, 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 blah. Boom. So then we have that first meeting, they go book the second meeting. Once that's done, it kicks off all the things that they need to do, the software they need to use, and it shows them videos of how to then go use the software. So we build out in between every place, like automated emails, automated follow-ups. Like we have parts in there where like after they're done, we ask everybody to like leave us a Google review. Like we build out, we're still going to have an assistant here soon, but like the automation that we were able to build is enough of a role that solves like one person's job. And you really use the tech that exists. You use Zapier to connect a couple things, and you spend like $25 a month on all of that tech. Like every meeting gets booked automatically, Zoom gets created, it gets sent to them. I think a lot of people don't take the time to really build out that software. And again, like you'll look bad when you start to work with clients and they are like, what is going on? Like, I don't like, if you don't know what's next, how do I know what's next? And so what we've tried to do is we've like surveyed our clients every time, was like, have we ever communicated too much? And everybody's always like, communicate more. So we're like, every week we follow up, like if somebody has an action item, it's like every week on that day, I will follow up and remind them over and over and over and over again. And sometimes I think people are worried about like being annoying, but I don't think nobody's ever going to be upset with constant communication, especially because you're not like asking them to buy something from you. You're reminding them to do something that's important for their business or their life.
Absolutely. And also, if any new entrepreneurs are listening to this, like, don't think you have to get it all. Rome wasn't built in a day. You're not going to get it all figured out on day one. And there probably are going to be things where people will email you and ask you questions, or you'll realize something is very unclear that you thought was clear, and you can rework that process. It's always a work in progress. Like even this, so I got done with tax season, thanks be to Jesus. And now like I realize there are some processes we have in place that aren't as efficient as I want. So now I'm spending like the next 2 months really getting some better processes in place. And as your business grows, your team expands, that's going to happen. You're going to realize that what worked maybe isn't working as well as you thought it would, or with your new like culture or whatnot. So
Well, and also you might be working with it, like who you thought you were working with might become refined. So it's like, here's the
yes,
process that I thought, like for me, I was like, here's a process that works well for millennials. Well, now the millennials I'm working with are mostly business owners and people with equity comp. And so then I'm like, okay, now that I know their needs better, how do we refine this process to deliver better results and be there when they need to and all those things? So it doesn't mean day one you have to have the best process, but it's like, here's a process that's good. And then over time, as I learn my people better, how do I continue to iterate? Like we've changed number of meetings to when annual reviews are, to what deliverables look like, and how you communicate. All those things change as you figure out better who you're going to work with, but you still have to start with something.
agreed.
Otherwise, like, how, I just don't even really know how you go about doing it.
Otherwise it's chaos for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're not going to look very professional.
Well, okay. So changing gears a little bit, that was honestly a great conversation. Let's talk a little bit about some of the biggest tax mistakes you see business owners make. And I think obviously first one from what we talked about before is like, you got to know your numbers. Like if you don't know your numbers and have bookkeeping or at least do it yourself, like you can't really go file taxes. And all you do is create this big problem where you have to spend hours and hours of work doing it now come tax time anyways. You might as well, instead of doing 5 hours in 1 month, do 20 minutes a month.
Amen. Yes, that is number one. Just be organized, people, in some way, shape, or fashion. It'll make your life easier. It'll make your CPA's life easier. It'll save you money. So do that. I would say number two, after that, you want to be organized. I also see a lot of business owners still DIYing their own tax return, which I'm like, I get it if you just have a W-2 and you can hop on TurboTax, but there's a lot of things that come with being a business owner, a lot of deductions and things you can take advantage of, a lot of even things in terms of tax compliance that you need to know about. And if you are not knowledgeable in the area of tax, you could be missing out on a lot of things. So I typically tell people, if you own a business, you really need to hire out the preparation of your tax return. That's not me trying to, promote my services, because we severely cap how many tax returns we do each year. And mainly we just do them for clients, because I never wanted to have a crazy tax season like I did when I was straight out of college working for a CPA firm.
Yeah.
So this isn't me like touting my services, like come hire me. This is really just like, that is a best practice for every single business owner. Get a CPA who you trust, who knows your business, knows the industry, knows, this business and this new business environment that we're in. That's very digital and very virtual or whatnot, and have them prepare your tax return. Yeah. Please and thank you.
Yeah, I give that advice to everybody. Like, I guess if you're 22 out of school and it's like, I got really nothing going on, maybe. Right. But it's just like, I have all these clients who they'll be spending 30 hours doing their tax return. I'll be like, I just kept trying to refer you. You make $500,000. This person's going to do your tax return for $300.
Right.
You're spending 20 hours. And then they're asking me questions, how to do it and all this stuff.
And it's still probably not right.
I'm not like gray area. I can't give you filing tax advice. And then like, okay, next year, this is what we're going to do. You're going to pay for it. You're going to do it by yourself at the same time, because that's what they want to do. And you're going to compare what happens. Right. I just want you to see, because there's definitely things that you're missing. And even if you're not, like, just give yourself the time. Like, none of them like doing it. They all get stressed by doing it.
Exactly.
And then $300.
Like, outsource the crappy things in your business, guys. Like, that's
business owners get more too. Normally business owners get like, okay, this isn't necessarily about I'm too stupid to do it. This is more so about like, I know my time is best spent growing my business than spending all the time trying to figure out taxes for the one time a year you do it. You don't know nuances, you don't know all the right deductions, all that stuff. Totally agree with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I see a lot of, when I take on a new client and they provide me with their prior year tax returns that they've done themselves, or sometimes they've had another CPA do them and not a great CPA or tax preparer. Maybe they took it to H&R Block or something, where they have just missed some really easy deductions like home office or business mileage, or, you know, everyone, if you're a business owner, I shouldn't say everyone, but let's say 98% of people who are business owners use their personal cell phone for business, and they work from home and are using their personal internet for business. Like those are things you can write off, and they're just completely forgetting them. So, you know, that could be hundreds and hundreds of dollars in tax deductions, and that you just aren't getting.
Yeah, I think this is a great point, because I think people hear about tax deductions and they're like, maximize them. And there's a difference between let's maximize what I'm paying to help on my taxes versus let me buy things simply because it's a deduction. Because I think that people are talking to me like, I think I should get a new, like, they're like, I have a couple of clients, they're like real estate investors, and they have like a couple of places, they're like, I think I'm going to just like buy a new truck through my LLC. And just write it off. And I'm like, do you need a new truck? And they're like, well, not really, but like it's a write-off, and like I'll be able to, like, you know, I can drive to my places when I like do stuff. And I'm like, okay, so these places are hours away. You're gonna buy a truck with the worst gas mileage. You're not even the person doing the work on the place. Like, what do you need? What do you even need the bed of a truck for? But that's like what I see all the time is people spending for the deduction. And that's not what we're telling you to do. We're saying maximize the deductions based on what you spend, like completely different sides of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I love to tell people, like, even if it's a business expense, like it's still your money, because that's money you could be paying yourself for something else. So if you wouldn't otherwise get that truck, don't buy the truck, because all you're doing is getting it maybe for a bit of a discount, right? For whatever your tax bracket is.
25% or whatever.
Yeah,
like
let's say 25%.
It might only cost you $750, but it still costs you $750, right? It's not
right.
Like, I think people think it's like, no, that took away $1,000 of tax I owe.
Exactly.
Definitely not how it works.
Yeah. And honestly, I see a lot of this. I'm not against like professional development and all of that. I think it's fantastic. And I love people investing like back into themselves. But I also think a lot of times people or small businesses are investing into these programs, these coaches, and they haven't done their research, and they're like, oh, well, it's just, you know, it's a business write-off. And it's like, yeah, but that's money that could be spent elsewhere. So are you going to get the return on that investment in that coach, that program, you know, this, that, or the other? Or would it be better spent advertising, on marketing, on hiring, anything like that? So everything has an opportunity cost. There's an Econ 101 term for everyone. So you have to determine, you know, where is my money best spent?
Yeah. Okay. Love that one. Any other ones you got?
In terms of like tax tips?
Yeah.
I would say those are like the big ones for most people. I would say once you're really starting to make good money, you want to really partner with a CPA, financial advisor, because there are a lot of tax benefits to being a business owner. Like we've worked together, Thomas, on some clients who are implementing self-employed retirement accounts, which are greatly beneficial for business owners, and they have huge contribution limits, but there's stipulations to them based on their business. But that's something that a lot of business owners don't even think about implementing. They don't know that there's that benefit there. There's also like business entity. Is it better to be an LLC or an S Corp, because there are tax benefits there as well? You can save, I mean, thousands of dollars per year, each and every year, by implementing some of these tax strategies that they're a little bit more complicated, right? You want someone who is really knowledgeable on your team to know the ins and outs. But they're not hard necessarily to set up and take advantage of.
Yeah. I think people view some of those decisions as like black and white of like, okay, when I cross this income threshold, we move to S Corp and, all these other things. But then there's like, yeah, that's what you read from one blog post, but there's more to it than that. Like, are there downsides of being an S Corp if you're going to be a big place and try to sell in 10 years? Like,
right.
Potentially there are. And then there's people who are like, well, hey, you should never go to an S Corp because of this, because it's all this extra work. It's a little extra work, but like if you become an S Corp a little too early, like it's not the end of the world either. Like I see financial planners talk about this all the time. Like CPA told them to do this, not quite the time. And it's like, yeah, but also it's like not the end of the world. And they're there 6 months earlier and then like was during the open deadline. So it's really not that bad. But I definitely agree on that one. And I think retirement plans and all that's super important too. But I think even taking a step further is business owners are so mindset of like, no tax. Like, how can I pay the least amount of tax this year? And again, like the goal is really the least amount of tax over your lifetime. So deductions, credits, all those things that you want to take advantage of on a year-to-year basis. But like, if you're a business owner doing 60K in, revenue this year, you might not want to be deferring taxes when your effective tax rate is going to be like 12%. And I think business owners are tax minded.
Or you maybe want to purchase a home in the next 2 years. That's the one I see a lot too, is people want to take as many deductions as possible, show the least amount of income, but then they go to apply for a mortgage and their lender's like, you don't show enough income.
Yeah.
So they've really shot themselves in the foot.
And Social Security in the long run too. People don't think about that side of it too. Is like, if we never take any profit from this business, like, if for a lot of people, Social Security is beneficial, you might end up with like almost no Social Security benefits because you never showed any income.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's a lot of things to think about that. Again, if you're not knowledgeable in this area, like you wouldn't know. So
I think that's the hard part here is it's like, there's one thing that like, yes, that is helpful, but then what are like the 10 ways it triggers down to maybe something else that like you just can't really figure out and put together from blog posts because they're only like giving you like this one tip, and it's too hard to like take you through the exact thing and how this would, because it's nuanced based on everybody, where you live, what your goals are, what your business is like. Are you going to stay and work it forever and pass it down to your kid versus exit and sell in 10 years? I mean, there's just so many factors that go into what to do, which is why working with financial planners, CPA, like people who like can take this and nuance it to actually what you're going through becomes so helpful and important.
Yeah. And I would say to anyone who, reads financial blogs or whatnot, it's really just to give you like the idea, right? To get you thinking. It's the starting point of this could be an option. It's not, hey, here's all the information on this and just go do it. It's really, have you thought about this? And if this could potentially apply, then you should go speak to someone. That's really how, if you're reading a financial blog or a tax blog, that's how you should be thinking about it. You want to discuss that with someone before you actually implement it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm curious, like how would a business owner know if an accountant's good? Like I've seen other financial planners talk about like they'll review someone's tax return and they missed like the QBI deduction and some other just like kind of very obvious ones. And then if someone isn't like knowledgeable around that and they look at their own tax returns, like, oh yeah, I owe this much, and like they don't know how to like audit that themselves. So like, are there questions to ask, or should you always get like two opinions, or what's the best approach to like?
Yeah, I would say probably referrals are good, especially referrals from other like professionals, like a financial advisor referring a CPA referring a financial advisor, because those two types of professions work closely together. So you kind of know who's good and who's not.
Well, and also just that we're not going to refer unless we know they're good, because it falls on us. Like people think referrals are like this thing that you give out to be helpful, but like I'm never sending my client to Brittney if she's going to do a bad job, because why would they not fire me for screwing up like that next connection? And I think people like fail to realize that at some point. Like that's why.
And it's not like, I mean, I'm not paying you, you're not paying me for referrals. Like we don't do that. I refer exactly what you said. refer people who we trust, because we want to be looked at as trusted advisors as well. And that reflects either poorly or well on you if you, refer someone who's good or who's not.
Yeah, you want to find the people that like are, hey, I'm referring to you because you do a good job and that's all you need to do. Not that people are like, okay, if you refer to me, I'll refer to you. And then we both win because we're each getting like, no, like the people that are like into referrals for sales, like I know the COI conversation, but it's just like, if you come into everything with like, this helps you, like it also helps me. The goal should be that I'm helping my clients get to you because that helps them. Which helps me, like not because you're then like, well, sure, now I'll send you a couple people because you sent me a couple people. And I think that's how so many people are in referrals. And then right away, like that person's never getting a referral of mine as soon as they ask that.
Exactly.
There's just no way.
Exactly. I agree. Yeah. In terms of questions, I would say, maybe some good questions, or a good question to ask is if they work with other people in your industry too, because if they do, typically they know the nuances behind it. So yeah.
Okay, cool. Any last like thoughts on your end or things that we didn't mention yet?
I don't think so. No, I think we've covered quite a bit and some good stuff, some things people can think about.
Me too. So before we go, let everybody know where they can follow you. And are you like still accepting clients? And if so, like who?
Yeah. Okay. So you can find me at kineseandco.com online. You can find our course catalog at, I think I'll probably send you the link, but I think it's like my Kajabi, that Prosper Simply or something. It's a Kajabi website. I never remember the whole thing. But really I live on Instagram. So my handle is Brittney Suttle CPA. You can find me there. You can DM me. We currently have a wait list for monthly clients and for tax clients next year, but you can hop on that wait list. We think we're going to open some monthly spots this summer, and then we'll be opening spots for next tax season as well. So if you want on that, you can go to kineseandco.com as well and sign up for that wait list there.
All right, perfect. Well, thanks for taking the time to hop on here today. I think this was super valuable for all the business owners out there. And looking forward to just staying connected to you and creating more content together over time.
Sounds good. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Yeah, thanks everybody for listening. We will see you back next week.